The Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum is getting its first ever F-15, and boy does this Eagle have a story to tell. Now, air-to-air kills have been exceedingly rare for American fighter pilots since Vietnam, but this particular Eagle saw not one, but 2 kills against Iraqi MiGs in 1991 before its pilot, Caesar callsign Rico Rodriguez, went on to secure a 3rd air-to-air victory in Yugoslavia 8 years later, making him one of just 4 American fighter pilots to have 3 air-to-air victories in the past half-century. But this Eagle's first win didn't come with a missile, or even with the fighter's cannons. No, Rico straight up outflew the Iraqi MiG-29 he squared off against, making his first ever air-to-air victory a maneuver kill. Just 3 days into Operation Desert Storm, Rico and his F-15C Eagle, aircraft number 850114, found themselves in a close-quarters dogfight with an Iraqi MiG-29. A 4th-generation fighter sourced from the Soviet Union that was designed specifically to stand and swing with America's F-15 and F-16. The MiG-29 entered service a full 5 years after the Eagle, and Rico knew that he was in for a pretty good fight. The 2 fighters soon entered into a descending scissors pattern, with both pilots turning into one another aggressively and repeatedly to try to get into good firing position as they both dove toward the ground. Pulling 9 Gs in his Eagle, Rico tried to lock onto the MiG with his AIM-9 Sidewinder, but they were approaching the ground so fast that the missile couldn't differentiate the Iraqi jet's heat signature from the hot desert sand below. As they reached about 1,000 feet off the ground, Rico knew his aircraft and what it was capable of. He switched to guns, fully confident in his ability to pull up out of the dive and send that MiG a 20mm care package. But the Iraqi pilot and his MiG were not nearly as good. As Rico pulled the nose of his Eagle up toward the MiG-29 for a gun kill, the Iraqi pilot panicked and went into an inverted dive to avoid Rico's shot. But he misjudged his altitude and ended up flying straight into the ground. Rico didn't even have to pull a trigger to score his first kill. His second came 1 week later and with a lot less drama. You see, in the Air Force, you don't always fly the same aircraft, and Rico didn't even realize that he was piloting the same F-15C that he'd scored a maneuver kill with a week earlier. As a pair of MiG-23s closed with Rico and his wingmen, the Eagles launched 3 AIM-7 Sparrow semi-active radar-guided air-to-air missiles at the 2 of them. Now, 2 of those 3 missiles, including one launched by Rico, found their targets and brought those MiGs down, and Rico found that he'd scored a second kill in the same aircraft only when he got back to base and saw his crew chief painting 2 kill markings under the canopy rail. Now, Rico would go on to score another air-to-air victory against another MiG-29 8 years later, this time in a different F-15 and over Yugoslavia. By then, the much more advanced radar-guided AIM-120 AMRAAM was in service, and Rico's 3rd victory would actually be among its first ever combat uses. Now, Eagle number 850114 will be demilitarized for its new home at the museum's Udvar Hazy Center, my favorite aviation museum on the planet, and I, for one, cannot wait to see it there.